So, how are you today, Nigel?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you, Colin. How are you doing?
Fine. And do you know this is our 16th podcast? And actually, I was at a voluntary or volunteers yesterday in Richmond for recruiting, and 600 people came through the door to volunteer for things.
That's
So
incredible.
extraordinary.
That really is great, Colin. 600 people, so many people volunteering.
Yeah.
But that's marvelous. Should we crack on with it?
Yeah. I think we should kick it off. Yes.
Right. Okay. Hello. This is Nigel.
And Colin with another Encore Years podcast.
This is about retirement and learning to love it.
So we release a new conversation every week, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and it'll be purposeful for you. And if you just click subscribe, that helps other people and sort of builds up the audience better. So today we're talking to David, who I've known for a few years, and David was one of the first people I sort of turned to when I was looking to stop paid employment, which actually was 5 years ago this week. So it's my 5th birthday, because I was always so impressed, David, by the amount of things you got involved in and things you did. Nigel?
Okay, so how are you doing today, David? How are you feeling?
I'm well, and I had open heart surgery 12 weeks ago, but I'm really recovering well. Yeah.
Yes, you're very brave to come on. Well done.
It wasn't the pressure of us, was it, David? Did the pressure?
No.
It's more like the pressure of Colin, not me.
The surgeon said what it was that in my early career with British Airways, I worked shift work. And at the end of every night shift, I used to head down to the canteen for a full English breakfast. And I did that possibly for 10 years, from 23 to 33. And he said, that's what it did for me.
No.
Because you never recover if you lay the fat down that early in your arteries.
Good heavens, isn't that amazing? So my next question was, what did you do before retiring? So British Airways was a part of that.
Yeah, I spent my whole career. I did a commercial apprenticeship with them, split with college. It's one of those where you did 6 months at college, then 6 months at work, and so on for 3 years.
Wow.
They're slowly coming back. There are degree apprenticeships out there, I'm pleased to say now.
It's a good thing, I think. Was that your main career?
Yeah, I stayed with British Airways then till I retired at 62.
And that was a few years ago now, was it?
It's getting on for nearly 14 years, yeah.
Oh, Lord, yes. So when you retired, what was the first 6 months like for you?
Well, it wasn't actually too bad. I was sort of mulling several ideas of things to do. One was to set up my own air transport consultancy, but that didn't work out. I looked at working for a friend who also ran a consultancy, but I did a couple of jobs for him, but there wasn't sufficient work really for him to employ somebody else as well. So then I thought, well, why don't I look at using any gifts and abilities that I have in the voluntary sector? And so I started talking to friends who ran charities in Richmond and Twickenham. And eventually the Hampton Fund, what used to be called the Hampton Fuel Allotment Charity, had a trustee vacancy, and I applied for that and was selected for that, and eventually became chair of the organisation.
Wow. I do remember years ago that they came by an awful lot of money.
It has a remarkable history going back to 1811, when the government, to pay for the Napoleonic Wars, hit on the wonderful idea of selling off the common land to the highest bidder, without thinking of the impact on the poor, who were left without access for grazing or collecting wood for burning for fires, or all the 101 reasons that the common was used for. And at the time there was a rhyme: they lock up the man or woman who steals the goose from off the common, but they let the other fella loose who steals the common from the goose.
That's a very good one. No.
And in Hampton, the enclosures, Twickenham enclosures, were one of the first. And there was huge common land: Hounslow Heath, the Hampton Common, and Twickenham Common, of which the only remnant left is the green. You know, if you can imagine something 7 or 8 times the size of the Twickenham Green. And But at the time, the Duke of Clarence, who was the spare of the royal family, had been found a job as a ranger of Bushy Park. And he lived there quite happily with his mistress and 6 illegitimate children. But then his elder brother had an accident and he then became king, and history changed quite a lot. But whilst he was ranger of Bushy Park, he became very concerned about the impact of the enclosure on the poor. And so he persuaded his brother, who was then the Prince Regent, to dedicate some of the land for the use of the common people. And so that was a section of land up on what is now the Chertsey Road where Sainsbury's supermarket is. And that land was rented out, used for farming, and the income was used to apply to buy fuel for the poorer people of Hampton and the area. And then, of course, when market gardening became unprofitable in Britain, as the land began to be sold off for all sorts of use, housing and what have you, and hence Nursery Land's housing estate now that's there. And the charity owned this piece of land up against the Chertsey Road, and I hadn't joined the charity at that time, but they decided to get a consultant in to help them find a bidder for the land. And they set up a sort of bidding war between several supermarkets, and Sainsbury's won and paid 20 million for it.
I remember that.
And so that was the start of the endowment, which has now grown, I think, from memory to about 40 million. And the interest from that is applied to support individuals in poverty and to support organisations in Twickenham and Richmond that work and to help the poor.
So chairing that, we're talking a big job. We're not talking about, I just quietly, sleep off in the countryside somewhere.
Well, I mean, I knew nothing about market investment and what the investment managers were doing with the money. But one of those happy coincidences, we had another trustee joined at the same time as I did, who had PhD in mathematics and had worked in finance and government and industry. And so he was immensely helpful in sort of making sure the money was being well invested.
And what do you
how-
feel your biggest achievement when you were chair?
Well, I think we restructured the charity to focus more on where need had changed and to focus more on supporting organizations who worked with people in poverty or in general, health of the community and helping the community to flourish. And so that was the objective. And at first we struggled to find enough organizations, but then word of mouth spread and we were in the happy situation. Some years we had to choose between organizations based on the strength of their presentation. And the other interesting thing was because of the way the charity had been structured, it was structured by an Act of Parliament. And so we couldn't change the trustee deeds nominally without going back to Parliament. But the Charity Commission found some legal way around that. And so we worked with the Charity Commission to restructure the objectives of the charity. And that was another interesting exercise because we had to satisfy quite a lot of senior people in the Charity Commission that what we were proposing was in line with the original trust deeds. And it was originally people within the ancient parish of Hampton. But of course, that then included a lot of Teddington, Hampton Wick, Fulwell, and gradually as the Church of England expanded and population expanded, the other churches came in and were built. And so we shared the area with St James's in Hampton Hill, St John's, Hampton Wick. And so we tried to make sure that all those churches who had been represented historically on the trustee board or linked in with the trust were also considered. And so we would fund church projects that reached out to the community.
Very good.
How much time was this taking, David? I mean, it sounds a big job.
Well, at the point of when we were doing the restructuring, it was almost like at least a 3-day-a-week job. And when periodically, every 5 years, when we looked and reviewed the investment managers, that was quite an intense piece of work. And because, you had to be sure you were choosing somebody who could invest the money wisely and the least possible charges.
It's an incredible change for you.
Yes, I learned a lot of new skills. It was interesting.
Yeah, very fulfilling. And what do you do now?
I'm on the trustee board of 3 charities, and I also was invited by the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport um, to be on their aviation policy group. So I've been on that now for about 12 years.
So you're a
So
busy guy.
yes, also, beginning to do less and more involved with working with individuals, and I've done careers fairs in local schools and things like that, representing the Institute of Transport. So yeah, lots of portfolios of interest.
Very good. Very good.
With any of this, David, were there any sort of negatives around this? So you stopped work all your life with British Airways, and now it's a major change. Was there anything that didn't quite work?
Not really. I probably wasted too much time at the beginning working on this idea of setting up a consultancy. And I found that quite stressful because I hadn't realized quite how complex it was to do, both legally and in terms of trying to gain clients and things like that. So that was really.
If your best friend or a good friend was about to retire, what advice would you give them?
Well, since Colin approached me about it, I've been thinking about it. I think I've been looking at what other friends have done. And they seem to fall into 3 groups. And there are people who turn a hobby almost into a lifestyle. And my brother-in-law was one. He had always enjoyed carpentry, and he became so skilled at table making and that kind of thing that he would sell what he was producing at craft fairs around the Midlands area where he lived. And he got great satisfaction and in doing that, because it was a complete change from the kind of work he'd done working on farm work all his life. And then another friend who'd been a very senior corporate lawyer began to see how stressed some of the young lawyers were, as demands of working long hours and with tighter budgets came in, and also having to bring amounts of billing into the partnership. You're rewarded according to the amount of clients you gain and how much they pay. And so he decided he would retire early, and he retrained as a counsellor and now advises young stressed lawyers on how to be less stressed.
I think that's fantastic. We've all met stressed lawyers.
Yeah. And and again, he struggles a bit because it could be a full-time job, but he has to limit the number of clients he can see just to make it manageable and to give time to do fun things as well in retirement.
And what
I think
happens
that's it.
for you?
Pardon?
What happens next?
Oh, I have no idea. Well, I've got new plumbing to my heart, so the surgeon reckons I'm good for at least another 10 years. So I'm beginning to think what I might do.
You mentioned a third one, David. So you mentioned a third one. So the first one was hobby.
Oh, the third friend. He just became absorbed in working with the community and began to sort of explore ways that, because he'd had a background in the charitable world and the voluntary services, and sort of advising some smaller charities on how to improve their efficiency and governance and that kind of thing. Through that, was able to initiate 1 or 2 new organisations in Richmond and Twickenham. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's got to be something that you enjoy, and it's got to be something that keeps you out of the house at least 2 days a week.
Yes.
Actually, no one's ever said that before, but it's really interesting to put a number on it. 2 days a week.
Yeah,
I think that's really like that one.
because I had a friend whose wife is complaining that though he has interests in retirement, they're not enough to keep him from under her feet. And because he's chosen to do things that require maybe 5 or 6 days a month, but there'll be chunks of time. So it's not every week. Well, the ideal is to try and do something that takes you out and about every week.
Every week. Okay, that's a good one.
I think one of the things that surprised me when I began working with a charity is that what appears to be a very wealthy borough has islands of poverty, of quite deep poverty and deprivation, in oceans of wealth, and it sort of gets hidden. and not addressed as effectively sometimes as it could be.
I so agree with you, David, because years and years ago, I was in Rotary in Richmond, and that's exactly what we found, that there was an incredible, surprising pockets of deprivation in the borough, which outsiders wouldn't believe.
I mean, one of the great things that Hampton Fund did with Richmond Parish Lands Equivalent Charity in Richmond is to launch a new endeavour called One Richmond, and it's particularly focused on the whole of the borough, and it was to try and get companies and people of high net worth to understand that the level of poverty that there was, that where government and local government support only goes so far, and therefore there is a need that the charity sector bridges that and does it in a more compassionate way sometimes than the state can do.
That's really interesting. Really good.
Yeah, and very interesting, David, that you were looking and you sort of quoted 3 or 4 different friends. So you looked carefully, at what other people are doing. The problem a lot of people tell us is they don't have the 3 or 4 friends. They don't have many role models, retirement role models, really.
Yeah. Well, there is the classic tragedy, I think, which is often promoted in America, where they have these vast retirement complexes in Miami and, the Carolinas, where it says, come and live with us and spend the morning collecting shells on the beach and then at the country club in the afternoon. What a dreadful image of retirement. And somebody I knew as more an acquaintance than a friend, he'd been a minister of a large church, both in London and later in Toronto. He had a wealthy friend who, on retirement, bought him a second-hand motor launch. And this boat was moored in somewhere in Florida on the Keys. So he thought, oh, well, I ought to use this. So every winter for several years, he flew down there. And he said, but after 2 or 3 seasons of pottering up and down the waterways of Florida, he realized how incredibly boring it was, because you met the same people, did the same things, and the marinas were all, populated by the same kind of rich, wealthy Americans and Canadians. So in the end, he asked his friend, would he mind if he sold the boat? And used it to travel and to get back into ministry and helping people. And yes, I think that it is easy to drift into, not doing very much at all.
I think you're right. Absolutely right.
So sort of a message from you for how, if someone was worried about drifting, what would you advise them?
Join the 600 people who went to the volunteer fair in Richmond yesterday.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Indeed.
I was just talking to somebody recently who had several setbacks in life in their, early 60s and had ended up living alone. I was saying, the best thing to do is to try and focus on the needs of others who are less, well off or not quite as well situated financially or whatever. And so he's volunteered for 2 charities, and he enjoys working with the elderly, people in their 80s and 90s. And so that's what he's focused on. And it's really working well for him. And I think everybody has some gift or ability, and it's trying to find that out and listen to podcasts like this, or do the London Institute of Contemporary Christianity do a really great resource called Repurpose, which is available online, about living well in the older years. And somebody said to me recently, they're actually writing a book on it, on retirement, saying people should planning for their retirement when they're 40, because that's soon enough that you can boost your pension if you've not really boosted your pension, and so prepare financially and also begin to think mentally about what to do. Well, Colin was at a breakfast group with me when I floated that at some of the 40-year-olds who join us on that group, and they went, I'm nowhere near retirement. So I said, you're 15 years away with the way the economy and the world is changing. AI will have eliminated your job.
Yes.
That's so true.
So that's another great tip. Yes, start at 40. One of the things when Nigel and I was talking was, we should include interviews with 40-year-olds on this
Yeah.
to get their view.
Yes.
What are your
It'd
plans?
probably be as you said, but
Yes. Have you ever thought about retiring? What would you?
And I think most would turn around and say, I'll never retire.
or the only focus will be, am I earning enough? The only focus will be, I've got to have a big pot of money when I do retire. It won't be, if I volunteer today for something, in 20 years' time, I'll be really, ensconced in an organisation.
Yes.
Do you know, a
Yeah.
funny story just occurred to me that I've almost forgotten, that when I reached 62, I got a letter saying, you must come every Tuesday at 9 o'clock to the such and such a cafe where we all sing the old songs we remember. And I said, that's the last bloody thing I want to do. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great talk, David. Really, really inspiring.
Really interesting, inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Great. So are we finished, Nige? Are we done?
I think we are. And what a good day it's been. Really interesting. What fun we're having here, David, Colin and I. Meeting these lovely people, getting all these ideas. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Terrific. Right. Thanks again, David. And it's encore and out from me.
Encore and out from me.
God bless. Bye.
Well, Colin, that was another great interview, wasn't it, with David?
Yeah, so wasn't it so interesting? He's such a busy man doing stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And to think that he went from all those years working for British Airways to chairing a £60 million charity fund. Must have been a huge job, but he did that.
Or was it 40 million? But whatever it was enormous.
Enormous, yeah.
The other thing I liked, when he says 2 days a week out of the house. So that as a target is very sensible for men, women, partners, families. Really, really good idea.
Yep, certainly. And when we asked for his advice for other people thinking about retiring, is focus on the needs of others. Find out what is really wanted, what you can help with, and how good you are at doing different things. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah. And he looked at 3 friends. He said, what are they doing? So his most inspirational friends. And the first one, he moved into carpentry. The next one from a lawyer, become a counsellor. And the last one, working in community to improve charities. What a great tip. Look at your most inspirational friends.
Absolutely. And then the next one, which I thought was quite an interesting one, is to start planning at 40. Start planning your retirement. Certainly your financial bit at that age. I think most 40-year-olds would be shocked if they were told to do or suggested they should do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. But Nigel, I think we should be including 40-year-olds in this.
Yes. Yeah, good idea. Good plan.
And the last one for me was, the inspiration he gets from the Institute of Christianity. And he looks there and he says that there's a lot of really good retirement advice from them. So I think we got 6 fantastic action points from David.
Very good indeed. Another excellent interview. Great stuff. Great stuff.
If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. And hit the subscribe button down the bottom, and then you'll receive information when lots more of these happen. So I think we're done, Nige.
I think we're done. I think it's encore and out, Colin.
Right, encore and out, Nige.
See ya. Bye.